Welcome back to the Leading and Learning podcast. My name is Brittany Blackwell, and I am the customer marketing lead here from Panorama, and I'm your host for today's episode. Right now, states across the country are shifting how they define what it means to graduate. The focus is moving away from standardized test scores and towards something harder to measure and harder to fake. For most districts, that shift feels overwhelming. For Brockport, it became an opportunity. Today, I am joined by Dr. Ryan Lanigan, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction at Brockport Central School District in New York. Dr. Lanigan oversees curriculum, assessment, instructional innovation, and a whole lot more. And over the last several years, he has been building one of the most forward-thinking approaches to student readiness that I've come across, including some really intentional thinking about how AI fits into that work. Dr. Lanigan, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you this afternoon and to talk about the exciting work that we're doing here in Brockport and just what I feel is really some amazing opportunities for our young people.
Yeah. So before we get into everything that Brockport has been building, I would love to start with you. Your role spans a lot of amazing things, a lot of ground. What originally drew you into this kind of work?
Well, if we go back to the beginning, I've always been inspired by learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I believe in continuous learning. Honestly, I went into college. I went to college to play football. That was what drew me. And when it came down to picking where I was going to play, I ended up at Brockport State University, which actually is here in Brockport, New York. And we had a strong education program, which drew me into teaching, which if I would have went to a different college, I might have gone down a completely different career path. So honestly, it was my love of football that drew me to the school that put me in touch with what I'm doing and put me on the pathway to where I'm at.
I think that's so interesting to hear. I love to hear people's stories to how they ended up in roles of leadership, and yours is no different. So let's go back to before you had the tools, the infrastructure that you have now. What did your intervention and student support process look like, and what was that costing your team?
So when I first got to Brockport, we really were in desperate need of a revitalization of our multi-tiered systems of support and our RTI plan. It hadn't been updated for a little bit. So we worked very hard with our MTSS leaders across our district, with my colleague in my Office of Instruction, to really rebuild and to ensure that we had a robust system of intervention that supported students at all three tiers. We really put a laser light focus on ensuring that tier one, which is for all students, was very strong across the board with academics, behavior, and attendance. And then we really needed to reinvest in those tier two and tier three interventions and put systems and structures in place that would support our staff to much more quickly and efficiently help students that were getting off track get back on track, whether it was in one of those areas of attendance, academics, or behavior, or in multiple areas. But we needed to really put a systematic approach in place that was going to ensure that we were going to be in a good spot.
Yeah. So what were you trying to understand about a student that was like hard to get to like quickly?
I think looking at really getting deep into whether the student had a will issue or a skill issue or a little of both, really doing a root cause analysis, trying to really balance a model of support that really took into account things beyond just what happens within the school. And really getting our staff to recognize that an intervention process and system needs to really be rooted in our basic needs being met first, and to really work with the family to determine what is actually going on outside of school that could be directly correlated to why a student might not be being successful, why they might not be coming, and try to look to address some of those barriers or factors prior to just getting families in front of us and students in front of us and starting to hound on them of why they haven't gotten their homework done in the last 3 weeks. Well, maybe it's as simple as they're struggling at home, or they may not even have a kitchen table to sit at and do homework at night, or mom works the evening shift and it's a single parent home and they're responsible for babysitting when mom's working. And there are so many things that could be coming into play that we really need to take a look at the whole child, the whole student, the whole situation, what's going on, and start to pick off the issues one by one until we eventually get to what our need being met is, whether that's better attendance at school, producing better homework, and right down to recognizing that behavior is nothing more than a form of communication, and knowing that if a student is behaving a certain way, why is that, and what are they truly trying to tell us with that behavior, especially in our youngest learners.
Yeah. So what did it take to pull together the full picture of where a kid was?
It took a lot of time. I truly believe that the smartest person in the room is the room. So we brought as many experts as we could from across our district together. And we really started to think about the current processes and procedures that we had, where we felt we were strong, and wanted to make sure that we kept those things sacred, and really thought about what are the things that really we're missing, or where the gaps are, and how do we improve that. And really starting with the end in mind, right? Like, what was the goal? And that's what I talked about, was getting to that deeper root cause, whether it was a will issue, like the kid was just didn't want to do it, or they just didn't have the skill. They just didn't have the skill yet to do it. And if they didn't have the skill yet, how are we going to help them get there and close the gap? And if it was a will issue, what were we going to do to help bring them to a better place to work collaboratively with our teachers and our staff to do their very best? So I think starting there, bringing people together, thinking about what we were doing well, thinking about the things that we wanted to get better at, and then building a systematic approach to that, and then really making sure that we had the tools to help us drive it in a way. So prior to really finding Panorama as our MTSS tool, we were doing this with Excel documents and putting a lot of different and we were doing a lot of work, and it was taking so much time to bring it all together that we weren't actually taking the time to really discuss in depth what the students needed, and to put the plans in place, and to actually support the kids. We're spending more time finding data, trying to connect dots, and get that to the table. When we were able to find Panorama, which has been an absolute phenomenal system for us, the ability to leverage a tool that had all of our data in one spot, put it together in a way that we could quickly see it, and it's very colorful. And when you were seeing a lot of reds, we knew that's not okay, and we have to do something quickly. And then in the world that we've evolved into with artificial intelligence, and seeing the ability for AI to analyze things, to build agents and supports, and build us intervention plans, and really give us a starting point to really then deep dive into what we were going to do for kids. Because I think what's been so hard for districts, and especially districts that have many students that are in need, is how to get to all those students. And at some point, you start to feel pretty defeated because you're feeling like you can't make headway. But with the right tools, and the ability for those tools to help us put things in front of us in a much faster, efficient pace in a way that we need, we can then spend more time actually delving into the process and the plan, and what those supports are actually going to be. I think the biggest thing we've had to talk to staff about is these tools are great, but we still really go by the 80-20 rule here in Brockport. Like, the tool gets us 20% of the stuff, but the human capital is still the number one resource. And that 80% of really being able to quickly scan, to read through, to look at what it's suggesting, and really break that apart, pull it apart, and put it back together in a way that truly makes sense, because the experts in the room are our staff, and they know how to do that better than any system is going to tell us. But my goodness, what a great way for them to have quicker access. And it just takes that brainstorming time, and it cuts it down so that we truly can get to meeting the kids' needs.
Yeah, I think you gave like a really good like picture of the full process of where you went, where you came from, and where you're kind of going. You mentioned like it took a lot of time. How much time would you say that is it has helped in order for, I mean, with your new processes in place?
Well, it took us about a year to build the process. So it took almost a year of just continually building it. We built the structure and the system and the framework. Then it took another year to start to implement it. And then in the second year, we really had to bring the program, bring Panorama into our staff, and then train the staff on the tool. And throughout the second year, what we started to really notice is different groups of people were using the tool differently. So some people were using it for the data, but weren't using the tool to record the interventions and those things. And other schools within the district were doing a great job of that. So really, we had to come to some just this is how we're all going to do this. We all need to hold ourselves accountable to this, and we will provide more training to get there. I'm anticipating, and now in year three, what we're seeing is a much more streamlined approach. Everybody is using it with fidelity. Everybody is now really feeling more comfortable with the process because we've had some time to grapple with it and really understand how we do it. And so we're seeing quicker turnaround and better gains much faster. Have been more intentional about the implementation.
Yeah. And I want to talk about something that it may not impact a lot of states just yet, but New York State is changing how it defines graduation and student readiness. For those of us who are not from New York or aware of these changes, can you talk a little bit more about that before you talk about how Brockport decided to get ahead of that?
Yeah, I mean, so our state is really, New York is thinking differently about graduation. It's really building a framework that is really less about seat time and more about real world application, being more intentional about what the students are learning, leaning into student agency in a way that we really have never seen, and really thinking about what students should have to be ready for post-secondary success. They really have leaned into what they call the portrait of a graduate attributes. And so many of us over the years have always thought about soft skills, durable skills, professional skills, you might call them, but how to be a critical thinker or a problem solver, an effective communicator, future ready, a global citizen. Like all of those things matter in producing young people that when they graduate are in a position to have all of the access and options they need to be successful in a post-secondary world. And our state, I think, has done an outstanding job of starting to really recognize that those are the things that truly matter and are starting to try to evolve in a way that is allowing us in districts to be innovative and creative and come up with ways locally to really ensure that our students are demonstrating those core attributes and proficiencies to be ready for whatever the world is going to put in front of them when they leave. But really, I think we had to really think about education is changing. You see it in our state right now. The workforce is changing. It is continuing to evolve, and students need more than a compliance-based system to be successful nowadays.
Yeah. So how did you go about building this K through 12 framework that makes this really work across grade levels?
So our journey, we began actually back in October of 23. We felt that we needed to really get information from our community. So we surveyed all of our community, from our families to community members to business folks to our teachers to other employees in the district to our secondary students. And through that, the only question we asked them, there was one question, and it was, what does a Brockport Central School District graduate need to be successful for post-secondary success? What do they need? And what really came from that was some pretty powerful information. Our family talked about they wanted Brockport graduates to have more skills than just academic metrics. They wanted them to be able to be critical thinkers, to be communicators, have adaptability and be able to adjust to when things get hard. Financial literacy was something we heard a lot from our families. To have students that are empathetic and have empathy, and digital literacy. So those are some of the big things we heard. I will tell you, we started this work prior to New York State putting out the new Inspires framework and the Portrait of a Graduate work. And thank goodness we had a collective sigh of relief that our community was really spot on. And the things that they were asking for us to make sure we were ensuring of our graduates really aligned specifically with New York State. So we started to build a framework here in Brockport that we were very much into thinking about student empowerment. I think what you'll see from schools all over the country, all over the world, maybe is you see that buzzword, that empowerment. It's everywhere all the time. And I don't necessarily think that we've done a great job in education of empowering our students. I think we engage them. I think we get them excited about the things we need them to be excited about. Teachers are great. They do amazing work with kids every day. But to really empower kids, we have to really start to lean into their interests, their passion, their strengths in a different way. So what we really leaned into in Brockport was we thought about building a brand. During a student's pre-K through 12 journey within our district, we wanted them to truly be able to build their own brand. And in building that brand, by the end, they were able to present, demonstrate, and showcase who they are, what skills they possess, and what their strengths are, and what separates them from everyone else, and what's unique about them, and why that will lead them to be successful in whatever they choose to do when they graduate. We talk about, when you think about in the world that we live in, think about brand recognition. We all know, like when you say, I don't know, I'll laugh, my kids say this, but when you talk about Arby's, that slogan is "We have the meats." When you think about like McDonald's, I'm loving it, and all of the different Lexus, think of all the brands, and you can almost see it, like you remember who they are. Why wouldn't we want to do that with kids? Why wouldn't every student want to? Why wouldn't we want to, as a system, help every child that comes through our store, our district, build their own story and build their own brand? So our mantra here in Brockport is every student has a story to tell, and in Brockport we help them tell it. And that's really the fundamental foundation of what we're trying to do here.
I absolutely love that. I think it really resonates with kids nowadays because they are used to seeing people as brands nowadays with content creation and things like that. And so I think that's really meeting students where they are while also giving them the opportunity to build towards their future. One thing I'm kind of curious about when we think about like the portrait of a graduate and really earning credentials, what does that look like in Brockport?
So I think one of the things that in our state, as we have really tried to transition to graduating students who are proficient in skills, that's a little bit of a white whale for some people, right? Like it's a
Right.
little bit of like, how do I quantify that? And initially, when we started talking to our staff, people their gut reaction is, well, I I I teach kids to critically think every day in every lesson I do. And we're like, yes, but let's really think about what that means. What does it look like in a state rubric? What does that look like for a future employer? So if a student was trying to go on a job interview and they were trying to go filling out a college application or filling out going into trade school or whatever they were pursuing, how could they clearly articulate and demonstrate that they are proficient as a critical thinker? Or how do they show that they are an effective communicator? How do they do that? And so, what we really thought about was, what if we use something like micro-credentialing and digital badging as a way to tag certain assessments, assignments within our curriculum, but also think about things that students do where they're showing those skills and attributes throughout their entire life. Because when we talk about building a brand, yes, it happens in their algebra class, in their English class, in their phys ed class. It happens within our school, but it also happens on our stages, in our band and drama. It happens on our athletic fields, but it also happens outside of school. When we talk, we always talk about equity and building equity, right? Why wouldn't we acknowledge and reward a kid who has to stay home and babysit younger siblings and can't participate on the varsity soccer team because a parent has to work or they have responsibilities at home? You can't tell me that babysitting and watching children or doing other things outside of school that aren't directly aligned to extracurriculars and co-curriculars within school don't have the same value in preparing a young person to be ready for post-secondary success. I could argue that those skills of having to be responsible and provide safety for younger people, and to be able to problem solve and communicate what you need them to do, and be able to think in an emergency, all of those expectations help you to work with other people and maybe be in a leadership role. Why are we not leveraging that? So whether you're in the 4-H, you're in Girl Scouts, you're the first chair in the orchestra, you're the captain of the football team, you're in the debate club, and the list goes on and on and on, or you're babysitting at home, or you have a part-time job. All of these things are experiences that make up who you are, and they're part of your brand. So in our thought process was, let's build a system that not only acknowledges and recognizes students earning credentials and attributes tied to assignments and projects and things in school, but let's also look for ways to bring in the other pieces of their life's journey that they can lean into to build a comprehensive picture of who they are as a person and as a learner.
Yeah. So can you walk me through what that looks like when a counselor or a family sits down? What do they see? What can they use in that moment?
Sure. So again, it's all comes back to systems and structures. So we had to build a system, and we built a framework, and we've done a lot of the heavy lifting right now has been at our high school, and it will work its way through the middle and then all the way down. We're starting with the end in mind. They graduate after senior year, so we're building it from there backwards. But right now in middle school, in 6th grade and in 9th grade, we give our students something here called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And this assessment is leveraged to really help students know what their individual talents are. So to just give you a quick background of Clifton Strengths, it really leans into 4 domains: strategic thinking, executing, relationship building, and influencing. And under those 4 domains, there's 34 individual strengths. And when a student takes this rigorous assessment, they get a printout of what their top 5 strengths are. It really, I will tell you, as somebody who's taken the assessment myself, it's pretty accurate. I know that 4 of my 5 strengths are in the area of strategic thinking, which would make sense for somebody who is currently an assistant superintendent of a school district heading to be a superintendent. So it's pretty spot on. And those are important. So our freshman year, the things that we've had to do and we did differently is we added a course freshman year called a freshman seminar. It's really helping students transition, really ensuring that they have the executive functioning skills to make that move from being middle school students to high school students. That's where they take the real full Clifton Strengths Assessment. They spend the year really unpacking their strengths, who they are, what that means. Then we put them in a sophomore seminar. And in that sophomore seminar, what we have done as a district is we've worked with the folks who help us with the Clifton Strengths Assessment, and we have aligned what strengths align best to what career clusters. So we've taken the 16 national career clusters and we have directly aligned what strengths tend to be the best for those career clusters. And then in 10th grade, the students explore those career clusters, and it's not putting kids, it's not tracking kids. So based on your strengths, it's going to give you a recommendation for 3 or 4 of the 16 career clusters that you should explore, because jobs in those careers may lean into the strengths you have. It doesn't mean you have to go into one of those careers, but for young people who typically don't have any idea what they want to do, what a great way for them to kind of explore and look into the careers that will really lean into what they do well. Because think about, and I'm going to show my age, but back in the day when I was in college, I remember being in programming with students, and we'd be in the classroom doing the work and the book work, and there were many students who were doing laps around me and getting way better grades than I was. And then we got out into the field and we actually got in front of the kids, and I watched some of those people who were 4.0 students realized they just didn't like working with kids. They were great in the classroom with the theory, but they couldn't practically apply it in the classroom. And back in the mid 90s, then they had to pivot and change majors. And back in the mid 90s, in 1 year, you could probably most likely get it done in a year and fiscally afford that pivot. Fast forward to now and the exacerbated cost and what that means, kids can't pivot. So it's more imperative now than ever that in the education system that we are being very thoughtful about ensuring kids are exploring their options so that they know, and this is something we're pretty bullish on here in Brockport. We're not looking for kids to graduate knowing what they want to do. We really want to ensure that they walk out the door here with a diploma knowing exactly what they do not want to do.
Yes, I
Because
love that.
they may evolve and grow into different things, but by knowing who their strengths are and really exploring those and realizing this is not something that I want to do because I don't enjoy it, to cut that out so then they can really kind of hone in on areas that they want to think about being successful in. And we're being very intentional about that. So through these seminar courses, and then senior year, it's their branding course. We call it the capstone, but that's where they build a LinkedIn profile, they build their own resume up that's really professionally done at that point. They have their own brand website. And then they do a presentation to their parents, to staff, to community members where they're presenting almost in an interview form. Here are my strengths. Here's what I've learned about myself. Here's what I've learned along the journey. And then that culminates in them earning a credential for that branding presentation. The other piece is and this is where we're using Panorama and AI, we have built tools that build all this so students and families and counselors can see how this all aligns. It gives them all of those recommendations. We have our program of studies linked in there, so it will tell them what courses they should consider taking, and it will even say if they're taking an elective, hey, if empathy is one of your top strengths and you're thinking about going into the health science fields, this course would be a great course for somebody thinking about health science. Or because it's empathy, maybe education is a cluster you want to explore. Well, psychology is great for adolescence and education, that elective. So, and it gives them ideas of internships they can think about, whether they're ones we do in school or just ways to go out and get volunteer hours. It aligns our clubs and extracurriculars, which are specific to our school district, so that they have to clearly, they show like, hey, you want to build a resume? You should think about being in this club because if you have these strengths, this is a great club for you, and it will help you reach your goals of maybe going into this post-secondary world or whatever. And I mean, it gives so much information. If you're thinking about a degree in nursing, what are the top colleges for nursing? What do you have to have for SAT scores or GPAs or required courses to go to that? Or if you're going into the trades, like all the things all the certifications you'll need and the pre-things you need. And so between that and quantifying all of these different pieces with badges, we are truly building a comprehensive system so that our students are able to demonstrate through micro-credentialing and badge, through a branding presentation, and really thoughtful exploration of their strengths, who they are, and what that aligns to. Because we want them to explore careers, so their whole journey in high school truly is aligned to instruction and learning, matching potential post-secondary outcomes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The thoughtfulness and intentionality that Brockport has done around this body of work is absolutely phenomenal. You mentioned the AI tool and where like the counselors and the family can sit down with that tool and it helps produce all of that. You've also you talked with us previously about how you've used AI to reimagine how students can demonstrate proficiency. What does that look like on the curriculum side?
Yeah, so we are also using the Solara tool, the AI tool, which I will tell you what is so great about using Solara and these tools is it's closed AI. So if you really think about it, the internet AI is great, but when it's pulling from large language, the open forum, AI has a tendency to hallucinate. It may give you misinformation, or it may just make something up. It's a hallucination. And by using a closed system, what we're ensuring is that whatever's being pulled is only being pulled from the prompts and the things that we've put in on the back end to ensure that it is only, like when I was giving an example about clubs, it only will produce our clubs. So we don't have students coming to the principal saying, I want to form a blah 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 because it recommended it to me on my app, or like all of those things. So what we're also doing is we've done a lot of work curricularly with our staff to really look for where within our current curriculum that these attributes live, and how we can align these attributes to instruction. But that gets very tricky. And when you're asking a lot of different individuals to create and develop assessments, and when I say assessments, I don't just mean an exam, I mean presentations, portfolios, all different ways in which, oral explanation. There are so many ways in which students can demonstrate proficiency in skills and content. So by what we've done is we've built tools now that ensure that there is a standard of rigor across our district, regardless of content, regardless of course, regardless of grade level, that it's appropriate for each grade level, but it's the rubrics we've put in, it's the standards from New York State that we want to make sure are there. It's our curriculum. So it's all of our stuff, and it is building these assessments for our courses that we know are hitting those POG attributes. And the AI is doing, not only are they doing a great job of providing a real world lens and building opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning in a myriad of ways that aren't just a straight assessment. They're also showing staff where this presentation, this project, this opportunity, and this unit of study will allow students to earn a micro-credential or a badge in critical thinking or effective communicator or future focused. Like it really can, and it's doing that so that then when they build those presentations, we know there's consistency across courses, across departments, across our district. And that's how we ensure when badges are then generated, that we know that every badge that's generated is coming from a place of integrity, so that we can say, yes, this student is proficient in this attribute along with this content, and we are comfortable granting them a diploma for that.
Yeah. And I think I want to go back to something that you said earlier too, because a lot of what you're describing sounds like a little bit about prevention, not just like intervention. How do you think about when we think about like MTSS and tier one instruction as the first most important support, when we're thinking about that in terms of students who are going to do well later? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I honestly believe this. The best intervention is prevention. When I talked about MTSS initially, I talked about we really needed to put a laser light focus on tier one first to ensure that that was strong for all students. That using Panorama for our MTSS model has been outstanding, because the AI helps as a think partner for our staff when they're trying to come up with interventions for kids, especially kids who are challenging. Because like if a teacher or anybody working with students, if they had the answer on how to solve the problem, they would have already done it. Right. So when they bring it to an MTSS team and they bring it to a group to have to think, even around the table, sometimes there's only so many things that people can come up with. And sometimes having that AI tool put some brainstorming ideas out there quickly that then gives the staff an opportunity to look at and critically think about and go, oh, okay, we didn't think about that. Let's try that. But specifically, when you think about in the world we're living in, if I have a student who wants to pursue a health science pathway or a health science career cluster, and let's say specifically, I'll use nursing again, and we see in their data that their math aptitude is proficient, but it's on the lower end of proficient, you can actually ask the AI tool to produce a math support plan to help that student to achieve their nursing goals. And it will blow your mind when you see it, because it will literally not only map out instructionally what they have to do, but it starts with, here's why math is important for a career in nursing. Here is where you use it in nursing in the direct alignment. And then it maps out a year over year plan. And the best part about, again, the closed AI system, it only recommends interventions and programs that we offer. So and I'll give you an example. We use Conmigo, Khan Academy to support student learning with AI chatbot tutors. So you would see in our Solara tool that it would recommend Khan Academy, Conmigo, but it wouldn't recommend something else that we don't use. Because what you also don't want is for it to be recommending things and then having people come and go, we need this $40,000 new product that we don't have because the AI tool you told me to use is telling us to do that. So
Right.
that's where that closed system of AI also is intentional, but it is mind blowing how specific these intervention plans and we named it a support plan, and you can just work with the tool and massage it to where you need it to be to get what we need in order to make sure that that kid knows and that kid's family knows, like, hey, freshman year, if you really want to be a nurse, here's where you are. Like, let's have an honest conversation of where you are. And then let's talk about how we're going to get you to the finish line to meet your goal. So it just helps with clear expectations, a clear plan, goal setting, which is essential for kids and families. So nobody is confused about what we're trying to do. And it helps them see the connectivity. And I think it's great because then our staff can use that plan and intervene and check in. And even if it's advocating or just cheerleading along the way to keep them going and motivated and remind them of what their goals were, right? So all of that's there as well. So these tools, when used properly, can be an amazing resource.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned it. It pulls that student data, it pulls all of those things together in that closed system. We like to call it a walled garden because it is. It's your information, your data, the way that districts want it to be used. Last thing, really quick, Dr. Lanigan, Brockport has been doing this work for a few years now. Okay, like it's been a while, and it's Brockport's really stepping into what it sounds like a pretty significant next chapter. What do you hope other districts take from your story?
Well, I think the thing I would say is that we want to make sure that what we're doing is in the best interest of students in Brockport. But we've been very willing to share this story because if there's anything we can do to expedite the process, and I know this myself personally, if somebody else is doing something amazing, I want to see what they're doing and try to emulate that and make it my own and turn it into what I need in my district and where I work and what's best for our kids, but not starting from square one. And why wouldn't we want to continue to build a network where we can collaborate? And I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. The smartest person in the room is the room. And anytime you have an opportunity to learn something from somebody else and to share, and I will tell you that the vision we've created in Brockport didn't come in isolation. I've had the fortune of working with and around and for amazing people along my journey in different districts. And so I've picked up little pieces along the way that I've taken with me to bring to this experience here. When I got here, there was amazing people here that were doing great work, and we started putting pieces together, and we just started really collaborating in a way that was exciting, and people felt invigorated and energized by the work. And we built a structure together based on a lot of people's lived experiences and their knowledge and their background. And I think what I would want for this is we've done something. It's taking us along. It's taking us quite a bit of time to roll our sleeves up. Other people to listen, to learn from it, to take pieces they want, to make it their own. Because at the end of the day, all I really want to see and all we really want to see here in Brockport is anybody who wants to hear about this or use it. We will talk to anybody, anytime about any of it. Take what you want, make it your own, because all I care about is that regardless of what a kid's zip code is or where they live, that every student can have access and options to whatever they want to have when they exit their K-12 experience. And if we can help anybody else help other kids get there, awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why we use this podcast and why we spotlight districts like Brockport is because we want to help support and show the amazing things that all of these districts are doing. And Dr. Lanigan, I just want to thank you so much for sharing what Brockport has been building. What stands out in this conversation is the philosophy underneath all of it, the belief that if you design for student readiness from the beginning and use the right tools to make that visible, you spend a lot less time catching kids who have already fallen behind. And that's a reframe that a lot of districts need right now.
Well, thank you. And I can't say enough about our staff, our community. These things don't happen in isolation. And it really has, I said, we started with a community vision, and our community, from our Board of Education to our superintendent to all of our staff that works in our district and our community, they want what's best for the kids. This is a community that cares deeply and has pushed all of us in leadership here to do nothing but bring the best for kids. And we know that charge, and we've accepted that, and we will continue to do everything we can to make sure our kids here have everything they need to be successful in their post-secondary endeavors. But it truly does take a village, and in the village of Brockport, it is all about our kids here. So it's a great place and a great community for our students, and it's a great time and education for our kids to grow and learn. So our staff are second to none.
Thanks again for being a part of this, Dr. Lanigan. If you are a district or a school leader thinking about what graduation readiness means in your community, we hope this conversation gave you something to bring back. Thanks again for tuning in to the Leading and Learning podcast. Make sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss our next episode. We'll see you next time.